For thousands of years, the Velkar Empire ruled the stars. They were feared by every planet they conquered. Their ships were massive, black as night, and their weapons could destroy entire cities with just one blast. No one ever stood a chance against them. They were unbeatable. The Velkar were tall, cold creatures with silver skin that shimmered in the light of their many suns. Their eyes glowed red, and their voices were like a whispering wind, low and dangerous. They never lost a war, not in over 10,000 years of battle across the galaxy. For the Velkar, war was not just a way to expand their empire, it was their way of life. From the moment they learned how to travel between the stars, they had crushed every other species they found. The Velkar did not make alliances, and they did not show mercy. Planets that refused to surrender were destroyed. Those who submitted became slaves, working in the harsh mines of Velkar's homeworld or serving in their vast factories that produced more weapons and warships. No1 challenged the Velkar Empire. No one dared. They had grown arrogant over the centuries. Their confidence was so strong that they believed no planet, no species, no army could ever defeat them. Every planet they attacked, they destroyed without much effort. The Velkar had forgotten what it meant to struggle in battle, to face an enemy that could fight back. They believed they were invincible. In the grand halls of the Velkar capital, Emperor Zuthar sat on his throne, looking out at the galaxy map displayed before him. Each red dot on the map represented a planet the Velkar had conquered. There were hundreds of dots, each one marking a world that had fallen to the mighty Velkar fleet. His thin silver lips curled into a smile as he admired the vastness of his empire. General Karen, one of the Velkar's most trusted commanders, approached the throne and bowed. "My lord, the expansion is going as planned. We have identified a new system for conquest." Emperor Zuthar nodded slowly, his glowing eyes fixating on the general. "Which system?" "The Sol system, my lord. It is in a remote part of the galaxy. Only one planet has signs of intelligent life. A world called Earth?" The Emperor's voice was soft but filled with interest. "Tell me more." General Charon waved his hand, and the map zoomed in on the Sol system. A small, blue and green planet appeared on the display. "It's a primitive world," Charon explained. "The humans who live there have only just begun to explore space. Their technology is far behind ours. They will not be a challenge." The Emperor studied the image of Earth, his red eyes narrowing. "And yet, they have survived. Other species we have conquered were more advanced, yet they fell to us. Why have these humans not been wiped out by their own weakness?" Charon shrugged. "Perhaps they are lucky. Or perhaps they are simply too small and insignificant for anyone to care." Zuthar tapped his long, sharp fingers on the arm of his throne. "Send a fleet to Earth," he ordered. "Crush them quickly. Show them the power of the Velkar Empire." Charon bowed again. "It will be done, my lord." The Velkar fleet moved quickly. Their warships cut through space like dark shadows, silent and deadly. The fleet was small, only a few dozen ships, but that was more than enough to destroy Earth. The Velkar didn't need large numbers. Their technology was so advanced, their weapons so powerful that a single ship could take out a city in minutes. As the fleet approached Earth, the Velkar commanders felt no fear. They had done this hundreds of times before. It was just another planet, just another conquest. They didn't even bother to study the humans closely. To them, it was a waste of time. Commander Varlax, the leader of the fleet, sat in the command center of his flagship, looking out at the blue and green world below. "What a peaceful little planet," he sneered. "Let's see how peaceful it stays after we're done with it." The Velkar ships descended toward Earth. They didn't bother to hide their presence. Why would they? The humans couldn't stop them. They sent out a message to the leaders of Earth, a simple demand for surrender. It was the same message they had sent to hundreds of other planets. Surrender to the Velkar Empire or face complete destruction. On Earth, there was panic. The world's leaders had never seen anything like the Velkar ships before. They didn't know what to do. How could they fight back against such a powerful enemy? The Velkar were light years ahead in technology. Their ships were faster, their weapons stronger. It seemed hopeless. But there was something the Velkar didn't know about humans. Something they hadn't considered. Humans had faced impossible odds before. They had fought wars, survived disasters, and rebuilt from nothing. They were not the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they were resilient. They had a strength the Velkar couldn't see, a strength that came from their determination, their ability to adapt, and their refusal to give up. The Velkar fleet hovered over Earth, preparing to launch their attack. The humans made a choice. They would not surrender. They would fight. The first Velkar ship opened fire, sending a massive energy blast toward one of Earth's major cities. But before it could reach the ground, something incredible happened. The humans had developed a new defense system. The blast was caught in a shield and sent back toward the Velkar ship, destroying it in a fiery explosion. Commander Varlax watched in shock as one of his ships was wiped out. "Impossible!" he shouted. How did they do that? The humans had studied the Velkar. They knew the attack was coming, and they had prepared. While the Velkar believed they were unbeatable, the humans had been quietly developing new technologies, creating weapons and defenses specifically designed to counter the Velkar's attack. The Velkar fleet fired again. More energy blasts were absorbed and redirected. The Velkar ships began to fall one by one. Panic spread through the Velkar ranks. They had never seen anything like this before. No species had ever fought back like this. The humans were supposed to be weak, but they were proving to be much stronger than the Velkar had imagined. In the command center, Commander Varlax clenched his fists. "We need reinforcements," he shouted. But it was too late. The humans had already turned the tide of the battle. As the Velkar ships retreated, Varlax stared at the planet below, disbelief filling his red eyes. How had a primitive world like Earth managed to defeat them? It didn't make sense. But the answer was simple. The Velkar had underestimated humans. They had assumed that advanced technology was the key to victory, but they had forgotten about the human spirit, their will to survive, their courage to fight against impossible odds. And now, for the first time in 10,000 years, the Velkar Empire had lost. The Velkar Empire had never faced a loss in their long history. But now, something had gone terribly wrong. The small blue planet they thought would be easy to conquer had surprised them. Their first wave of ships had been destroyed. The news spread quickly through the Empire. Humans had fought back, and worse, they had won. Commander Varlax was furious. He paced back and forth in his flagship, unable to believe what had just happened. His fleet, which should have easily destroyed Earth, had been beaten by a species that wasn't even supposed to have advanced weapons. How could this happen? He shouted to his officers. Humans are primitive. How did they destroy our ships? None of the officers had an answer. They too were confused. The Velkar were the most powerful empire in the galaxy. No one had ever resisted them like this. But somehow, the humans had done the impossible. "We underestimated them," Varlax finally said, his voice low and angry. "We thought they were weak, and we paid the price for it." He turned to his second-in-command, a tall, thin Velkar named Lothar. "We won't make the same mistake again. Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him we need reinforcements. We'll crush these humans for good." Lothar nodded and quickly sent the message. But even as he did, there was an uneasiness in the air. The Velkar had never asked for reinforcements before. It was a sign of weakness, something the Velkar were not used to admitting. Back on Earth, the victory had given humanity a much-needed boost in morale. The world's leaders had gathered in a secure bunker deep underground, where they discussed their next steps. They knew that the Velkar wouldn't give up so easily. The first attack had been just a test, and they had passed it, but the real fight was yet to come. "We can't let our guard down," said General Harris, one of Earth's top military leaders. His face was grim, but his voice was steady. "The Velkar will be back, and they'll come with more ships, more firepower. We have to be ready." President Thompson, the leader of Earth's largest nation, nodded. "We need to strengthen our defenses. Whatever we used to stop the first attack, we'll need even more of it." Dr. Patel, a leading scientist, cleared her throat. "We used an energy redirection shield. It's a new technology we've been working on, and it worked better than we expected. But it won't hold up forever. The Velkar will adapt. We need to be one step ahead. The room fell silent as the weight of the situation sank in. They had won a small battle, but the war was far from over. Meanwhile, far above Earth, the Velkar reinforcements had arrived. A massive fleet of warships filled the skies, blocking out the stars. This was no longer a small attack force. The Velkar had brought their full might, and this time, they were determined to leave nothing standing. Commander Varlak stood on the bridge of his ship, looking down at Earth. His red eyes burned with anger and determination. "This time, there will be no mistakes," he said coldly. "This time, we will erase them from existence." The Velkar fleet began to descend toward Earth, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. This time, they didn't bother with warnings or demands. They had only one goal: total destruction. The attack began with a barrage of energy blasts, each one aimed at Earth's largest cities. The ground shook as the blasts hit, causing buildings to collapse and fires to spread. The sky was filled with the sound of explosions as the Velkar unleashed their fury on the planet. But Earth was not defenseless. As the Velkar ships fired, the human defense systems came to life. Massive shields, like the ones used in the first battle, sprang up around the cities, absorbing the energy blasts and sending them back toward the Velkar ships. For a moment, it seemed like humanity might survive again. The Velkar ships took heavy damage as the redirected energy tore through their ranks. Several ships exploded in bright flashes of light, sending debris raining down from the sky. But the Velkar had learned from their mistakes. This time, they were ready for the humans' defenses. As soon as the shields activated, the Velkar ships switched to a different type of weapon, a weapon that couldn't be reflected back. Long, thin beams of light shot out from the Velkar ships, cutting through the shields like they weren't even there. The human defense systems struggled to adapt, but the Velkar were too fast, too powerful. On the ground, chaos erupted. People ran for cover as the beams sliced through buildings, streets, and vehicles. The human military fought back with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. The Velkar had brought their full strength this time, and the humans were quickly being overwhelmed. General Harris watched the destruction from the military command center, his face pale. "We can't hold them off," he muttered. "They're too strong." President Thompson slammed his fist on the table. "We need more time. If we can just hold out a little longer, maybe we can find a way to stop them." Dr. Patel shook her head. "Time is the one thing we don't have. The Velkar are adapting too quickly. Our technology can't keep up with them." As the situation grew more desperate, a new idea began to form in the minds of Earth's leaders. It was a risky plan, one that had never been tested before, but it might be the only way to survive. "We have one last option," General Harris said, his voice tense. "It's not a guaranteed success, but it's all we've got." "What is it?" President Thompson asked. "We've been working on a new type of weapon," Harris explained. "A weapon that could potentially disable the Velkar ships. It's experimental, and we've never had the chance to use it in combat. But if it works, it could turn the tide." Dr. Patel frowned. "Are you talking about the EMP device?" "It's not ready yet. We don't even know if it will work on Velkar technology." "We don't have a choice," Harris replied. "If we don't use it now, there might not be an Earth left to save." The decision was made quickly. The EMP device, a massive pulse generator that could disable all electronic systems within a large radius, was Earth's last hope. The device was loaded onto a military aircraft and flown toward the heart of the Velkar fleet. As the plane approached the Velkar ships, tension filled the air. The pilot, a brave soldier named Captain Reynolds, knew that this mission was a one-way trip. If the EMP worked, it would shut down all technology in the area, including the plane itself. But Captain Reynolds didn't hesitate. He flew straight toward the enemy, ready to sacrifice himself to save his planet. With the Velkar ships closing in on Earth's last defenses, Captain Reynolds reached the center of the fleet. He activated the EMP device and, with a bright flash of light, everything went silent. The Velkar ships stopped in midair. Their weapons went dark, their engines shut off, and their systems failed. The mighty Velkar fleet, the most powerful force in the galaxy, was suddenly frozen in place. Captain Reynolds' plane also lost power, and it began to fall toward the earth. But as he looked out the window, he smiled. He had done it. He had given humanity a fighting chance. On the ground, cheers erupted as the Velkar ships hung motionless in the sky. For the first time, it seemed like Earth might actually win. The silence hung heavy in the air as the EMP blast rippled through the Velkar fleet. Earth's defenders looked up at the sky, watching in disbelief as the once mighty ships hung motionless, their lights dimmed. For the first time in eons, the Velkar Empire was vulnerable. General Harris stood at the command center, a mix of hope and disbelief on his face. "Did it really work?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, sir," a young officer shouted from his station. "The Velkar ships are completely disabled. We have a chance." Harris clenched his fists, excitement bubbling up inside him. "Prepare our forces. We need to move quickly before they regain control." Outside, the sky was still dark with the remains of the Velkar fleet. The humans had fought hard, but this was their moment to strike back. Earth's military had never been tested like this before, but now they were ready. As ground troops began mobilizing, Commander Varlax stood on the bridge of his flagship, his expression one of disbelief and rage. "What is happening?" he shouted, slamming his fist on the console. "Why aren't our systems responding?" His officers scrambled to find answers. They had always been invincible, but now they were helpless. "The EMP blast, it has disabled everything," one officer exclaimed, his voice shaking. Varlax's mind raced. This was a disaster. If the humans managed to take advantage of this moment, it could lead to their defeat. "We must reboot the systems. Get the backup generators online." But as they struggled to regain control, the humans were already mobilizing their forces. General Harris quickly sent out orders to every division. "We move in now. Take advantage of their weakness." With tanks rolling onto the streets and infantry rushing forward, the humans were no longer on the defensive. They were ready to fight back with everything they had. The sight of their forces ignited a fierce determination in the hearts of every soldier. Meanwhile, in the skies above, Captain Reynolds managed to guide his falling plane to a safe landing just outside a military base. He climbed out of the cockpit, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. His mission had been a success, but he knew the battle was far from over. "Captain," a soldier ran up to him, panting. "We need you back at command. They're planning a counterattack." Reynolds nodded, his mind focused. "Let's move." Back at the command center, Harris was coordinating the assault. He glanced at the large screens showing the status of the Velkar fleet. "They're vulnerable," he said. "We have to hit them hard and fast." As the humans advanced, the streets of Earth erupted with activity. Soldiers, engineers, and scientists worked together, creating makeshift weapons and defenses. The atmosphere was electric with hope and determination. "Move out," Harris shouted as the troops began to deploy. As they approached the Velkar ships, the humans were filled with a newfound confidence. Tanks rolled forward, armed with powerful cannons and missile launchers. Soldiers carried advanced rifles, ready to engage the enemy. The first strike came from the tanks, their shells flying toward the nearest Velkar ship. With a loud explosion, the shell hit the ship's hull, creating a fiery impact that shook the air. The Velkar fleet had never experienced anything like this. Varlax watched in horror as his ships were attacked. "We must defend ourselves," he yelled, but his orders fell on deaf ears. His crew struggled to bring systems back online, and panic spread among the ranks. The humans pressed forward, launching coordinated attacks on the disabled ships. Soldiers climbed onto the hulls, planting explosives and taking advantage of the Velkar's moment of weakness. Amidst the chaos, Reynolds found himself leading a squad of soldiers. They moved stealthily toward one of the largest Velkar ships, determined to disable it completely. "Stay low and watch for guards," he instructed. As they approached the ship, they spotted a group of Velkar officers frantically trying to restore power. "Now's our chance," Reynolds whispered, and they charged forward. The element of surprise worked in their favor. The humans engaged in a fierce battle, using their superior numbers and tactics to overwhelm the disoriented Velkar. Reynolds fought bravely, his training kicking in as he moved swiftly, taking out enemies with precision. "Cover me!" he shouted to his squad as he sprinted toward the ship's entrance. He kicked the door open and rushed inside. The dimly lit interior was filled with strange technology, but Reynolds knew they had to reach the control room. Back outside, the battle raged on. Explosions lit up the sky as the humans relentlessly attacked the Velkar fleet. Varlax, desperate to regain control, sent out distress signals to the rest of the Empire. "We need help. Reinforcements now." But the communication systems were still down. The Velkar were cut off from their empire, and with each passing moment, they were losing ground. As Reynolds navigated through the ship, he could hear the sounds of the battle outside. The humans were winning, but they had to finish what they started. He reached the control room, where a group of Velkar technicians struggled to restore power. "Get down!" Reynolds shouted as he burst through the door, his rifle raised. The technicians froze, fear in their eyes. "Surrender now, and you'll be spared." One of the technicians, a tall Velkar with a scar running down his face, stepped forward. "You don't understand. You're making a mistake." Reynolds shook his head. "No, you're the ones who underestimated us." Just then, an explosion shook the ship, causing the lights to flicker. Reynolds took advantage of the moment, moving quickly to secure the room. He and his squad began to plant explosives throughout the control center, determined to disable the ship completely. Outside, the battle continued to turn in humanity's favor. As more Velkar ships fell, the humans began to realize they might actually win this fight. "We can't let up," General Harris shouted over the comms. "Keep pushing forward." With renewed energy, the human forces pressed onward, taking out ship after ship. The once feared Velkar Empire was now crumbling before their eyes. As the explosives went off inside the control room, the Velkar ship shuddered violently. Reynolds and his squad made their escape just in time, leaping from the ship as it began to self-destruct. They landed safely on the ground as the Velkar ship exploded behind them, sending debris flying in all directions. The humans cheered, knowing they had just dealt a significant blow to the Velkar Empire. In the skies, the remaining Velkar ships were in disarray. Many had lost power, while others were overwhelmed by the humans' relentless attacks. Varlax could feel the tide of the battle turning. "Fall back," he ordered. "We need to regroup." But it was too late. The humans were not about to let their victory slip away. With one last coordinated strike, they targeted the last of the Velkar ships, sending them crashing down into the atmosphere. The battle had changed course. The humans had turned the tables, and for the first time, they could see a path to victory. As cheers erupted across the command center and on the ground, they realized they had a chance to end the Velkar threat once and for all. "Prepare for the final assault," General Harris commanded, his voice booming with confidence. "We finish this now." The sun began to rise over the battlefield, casting a golden glow across the ruins of what once was a peaceful Earth. Now, it was a war zone filled with the sounds of chaos and determination. General Harris stood at the command center, watching as the screens showed the remnants of the Velkar fleet scattered across the sky. The time had come for the final battle. "All units, prepare for the big push," Harris commanded, his voice steady and loud. "We have to finish this fight today. The Velkar Empire thinks they can challenge us, but we will show them the strength of humanity." The soldiers in the command center erupted in cheers, their faces filled with hope. They had fought hard and lost many friends, but now they had the chance to turn the tide completely. "Sir," an officer called out, pointing to the main screen. "The Velkar are regrouping. They are bringing in reinforcements from their nearby outposts." Harris clenched his jaw, knowing they had to act quickly. "Then we can't wait. Send out the fighters and the ground troops. We need to hit them hard before they can form a solid defense." Outside, the atmosphere was tense. Soldiers prepared their weapons and vehicles, their hearts racing with adrenaline. Commander Varlax stood on the bridge of his flagship, his expression cold and calculated. The Velkar Empire had faced challenges before, but this human resistance was unlike anything they had encountered. "Ready the fleet for battle," Varlax ordered, his voice echoing through the ship. We will show these humans that they are nothing but ants beneath our feet." As the Velkar ships lined up in formation, the humans gathered their forces on the ground. Tanks rolled forward, and infantry squads took their positions. Captain Reynolds stood among his fellow soldiers, his heart pounding with anticipation. "This is it, guys," he said, looking around at his team. "We need to work together and fight as one. If we stick to the plan, we can take them down." The soldiers nodded, their resolve strengthening as they prepared for what lay ahead. The ground shook as artillery units positioned themselves, ready to unleash fire upon the enemy. "Everyone, take your positions," Reynolds shouted, adrenaline fueling his voice. "Hold the line and push forward." As the countdown began, the tension in the air was palpable. The humans knew that this battle could decide the fate of Earth. A single misstep could cost them everything. 3, 2, 1. Go! General Harris yelled, and with that, all hell broke loose. The sky lit up as the humans launched their first wave of attacks. Fighter jets soared into the air, firing missiles at the Velkar ships. The ground shook as tanks fired their cannons, sending explosive shells toward the enemy formations. The Velkar responded quickly, their ships activating shields and firing back with powerful energy beams. The battlefield turned into a chaotic dance of destruction. Reynolds and his team pushed forward, taking cover behind rubble as they engaged with Velkar soldiers who were also preparing to fight back. The sounds of gunfire and explosions filled the air as both sides clashed. "Cover fire!" Reynolds shouted as he aimed his rifle, taking down a Velkar soldier who tried to flank their position. "Keep pushing. We can't let them regroup." The humans fought with courage and determination, knowing that they were not just fighting for their lives, but for the future of their planet. As they pressed forward, they began to push back against the Velkar forces. In the skies, the aerial battle raged on. Fighter pilots twisted and turned, evading enemy fire while launching their own attacks. The Velkar ships were powerful, but they had never faced pilots as skilled as those of Earth. "Watch your six!" a pilot shouted over the comms, dodging an incoming energy blast. "We need to take out that flagship." With precision and teamwork, the human pilots launched their missiles, targeting the Velkar flagship. Explosions erupted as they hit their marks, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. Back on the ground, Reynolds and his squad pressed deeper into Velkar territory. They moved as a unit, each soldier covering the other as they advanced. The Velkar soldiers, though powerful, were beginning to falter under the relentless human assault. "Push forward," Reynolds urged, his heart racing. "We have them on the ropes." As they advanced, Reynolds spotted a large group of Velkar soldiers regrouping nearby. "Let's take them out," he called to his squad. They moved swiftly, flanking the enemy and catching them by surprise. The humans fought fiercely, their numbers overwhelming the Velkar. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the ground nearby, throwing Reynolds off balance. He quickly regained his footing, looking around to see the chaos unfolding around him. "Get back!" he yelled as debris fell from the sky. His squad scrambled for cover as another explosion shook the ground. The battlefield was a whirlwind of chaos. The Velkar were losing ground, but they were not ready to give up. Commander Varlax watched in fury as his troops were pushed back. "Fall back to the ships," he ordered, desperation in his voice. "We will regroup and launch a counterattack." But the humans were relentless. General Harris saw the Velkar retreating and knew this was their moment. "Advance! Do not let them escape," he commanded. The humans surged forward, taking advantage of the enemy's panic. Reynolds and his squad fought with everything they had, pushing back the Velkar soldiers who were trying to regroup. As the battle raged on, Varlax realized they had underestimated the humans. "This cannot be happening," he shouted, anger boiling inside him. "We cannot lose to these weak creatures." But the tide was turning. The humans pressed harder, taking down Velkar ships one by one. The once mighty fleet began to crumble under the human assault, and hope flickered in the hearts of Earth's defenders. "Keep fighting," Reynolds shouted to his squad, determination shining in his eyes. "We are making history today." The humans fought with unity and strength, knowing that they were not just battling for survival, they were fighting for their future. The Velkar Empire, once undefeated for eons, was now on the brink of defeat. As the dust settled, the humans could see the Velkar ships in disarray. Their reinforcements had not arrived in time, and their once proud fleet was crumbling. "Look!" one soldier shouted, pointing at the sky. "They're retreating." Cheers erupted among the human forces as they witnessed the Velkar ships turning and fleeing. General Harris raised his fist in triumph. "We did it! We have turned the tide." Reynolds felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had fought hard, and their determination had paid off. The battle was not just a victory, it was a testament to the strength of humanity. As the last of the Velkar ships vanished into the distance, the humans stood tall, united in their triumph. The sounds of battle faded, replaced by cheers and cries of victory. They had faced their greatest challenge and emerged victorious. The Velkar Empire would never underestimate humanity again. "Let's secure the area and check for any remaining enemies," General Harris commanded, his voice steady and firm. "We must be prepared for anything." As the soldiers began to regroup and assess the situation, Reynolds knew that this was just the beginning. They had won a great battle, but the war was far from over. But for now, they could celebrate their victory and honor the bravery of those who had fought alongside them. Humanity had proven itself on the battlefield, and together they would continue to fight for their world and their future. The battlefield was quiet now. The echoes of war had faded, replaced by a sense of victory and relief among the humans. General Harris stood at the command center, looking out at the horizon where the last Velkar ships had disappeared. Earth had survived an invasion, and humanity had proven itself as a formidable power in the galaxy. "Gather everyone for a briefing," he commanded, his voice firm yet calm. "We need to discuss what comes next. This victory is just the beginning." As soldiers filed into the command center, their faces were filled with pride and exhaustion. They had fought bravely, and now they stood as defenders of their planet. Captain Reynolds took a seat among his fellow soldiers, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through him. Harris began, "We have shown the Velkar Empire that we are not to be underestimated. They thought they could crush us, but today we turned the tide. This battle has changed the perception of humanity in the galaxy." Reynolds nodded, remembering the fear he had felt at the beginning of the battle. But now, that fear had transformed into confidence. Humanity had proven its strength, and it felt good. However, Harris continued, "We must be careful. The Velkar will not forget this defeat easily. They will regroup and plan their next move. We must be ready for anything." The soldiers listened intently, realizing that while they had won a great victory, the war was far from over. Harris explained their next steps, building stronger defenses, enhancing technology, and forming alliances with other species that might support humanity. As the meeting concluded, Reynolds left the command center with a sense of purpose. He knew they needed to prepare for whatever the Velkar would throw at them next. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had to adapt quickly. Days turned into weeks as the humans worked tirelessly to strengthen their defenses. They upgraded their technology, building better ships and weapons. Engineers collaborated with scientists to create new advancements that would protect Earth and ensure their survival in the galaxy. One day, Reynolds was in the lab with a team of engineers discussing new ship designs. "What if we create a ship that can cloak itself from enemy scanners?" one engineer suggested, excitement in his voice. "That could give us a huge advantage," Reynolds replied, nodding. "If we can strike without being seen, we can surprise them." Ideas flowed freely, and the atmosphere was electric with creativity and innovation. The humans were no longer just survivors. They were becoming a power to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, General Harris began reaching out to other species in the galaxy. He understood that forming alliances would be crucial in the upcoming battles. He sent messages to various factions, inviting them to discuss potential partnerships. One of the first replies came from the Trillion Alliance, a group of technologically advanced beings known for their skills in diplomacy and warfare. Their leader, Commander Zara, was intrigued by humanity's recent victory. In a video conference with Harris, Zara stated, "Your defeat of the Velkar is impressive. We have watched from afar and are interested in an alliance. Together, we can strengthen our positions in the galaxy." Harris welcomed the idea. We would be honored to have you as allies. Your technology and experience could greatly benefit us." As the two leaders discussed the terms of their alliance, Reynolds and his fellow soldiers trained harder than ever. They understood that knowledge was power, and they needed to learn from the allies they were making. Months passed, and the humans continued to grow stronger. They integrated Trillion technology into their own systems, enhancing their ships and weaponry. The training with Trillion soldiers improved their combat skills, preparing them for the challenges ahead. But even as they built alliances and advanced their technology, the shadow of the Velkar Empire loomed large. Rumors of their regrouping spread through the galaxy, and the tension was palpable. One day, while training on the shooting range, Reynolds received a message from General Harris. "We need to meet in the command center immediately. New intelligence has come in regarding the Velkar." Reynolds quickly gathered his gear and headed to the command center, where the atmosphere was tense. Soldiers whispered among themselves, wondering what news awaited them. Harris stood at the front, his expression serious. "We have received reports that the Velkar are planning a counterattack. They are gathering a massive fleet and intend to strike Earth again." The room fell silent as the weight of the news sank in. "They will not let their defeat go unchallenged," Harris continued. "We need to be prepared for their arrival. Our alliance with the Trillion will give us an edge, but we must also reinforce our defenses." As the soldiers absorbed the information, Reynolds felt a mix of fear and determination. They had fought hard to become a power in the galaxy, and now they had to defend that power. "Prepare for battle," Harris ordered, his voice steady. "We need all hands on deck. We will not allow the Velkar to take Earth from us." The soldiers rallied, fueled by their past victories and the knowledge that they were no longer alone. They were part of a growing alliance, and together they would face whatever challenges came their way. Over the next few days, the humans and their allies worked tirelessly. They set up defense systems around Earth, creating a protective barrier to detect incoming threats. The newly enhanced ships were ready for battle, and the soldiers trained harder than ever. As the days turned into nights, Reynolds felt a sense of unity among his fellow soldiers. They were no longer just individuals fighting for survival, they were part of something bigger. They were the guardians of Earth, standing strong against the forces that sought to conquer them. One evening, as Reynolds prepared for bed, he received a message from Commander Zara. "We have completed our preparations," she said. "Our fleet is ready to support you when the Velkar strike. Together, we will show them the true strength of our alliance." Reynolds felt a surge of hope. The humans had come so far, and now they were part of a powerful alliance ready to defend their home. As he drifted off to sleep, he thought about the battles ahead. He knew they would face challenges, but they were no longer the underdogs. Humanity had risen to a new power in the galaxy, and they were prepared to fight for their future. The dawn of the new era for humanity was approaching, and with it came the promise of challenges and opportunities. The Velkar Empire would soon learn that Earth was no longer just a small planet in a vast galaxy. It was now a force to be reckoned with, ready to defend its home and assert its place among the stars. As the new power in the galaxy, humanity stood united, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Together, they would fight for their freedom and their future, proving that they were not just survivors but warriors of the cosmos.